It doesn't feel like it should be me. There are so many athletes around the world that are better than me. Why? How come I get to sort of steal their spot? Everybody else in the world has a lot more um, facilities and coaches and knowledge, but somebody from South Africa has to go. I hope that if I was in their situation, then I might be one of them selected and one of the top athletes.
Hello everyone, I am Coach Ognian and you're watching Athlete Support. Today's very special guest is Aniya Holder. Aniya is an Olympic speed climber. Welcome Aniya, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent. Aniya, today is a very special episode of Athlete Support as you are the very first Olympic lady to join our podcast. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing your special story.
Thank you very much. So am I.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, let's start. Aniya, how and when did you start with rock climbing, and how, when, and why did that lead to speed climbing?
I started rock climbing when I was quite young. I think I tested it as about a 12-year-old. I just went to fetch my friend from the gym, and that's just where he was. So he asked me to pick him up from there, and then I thought that this looked really, really cool. And then I tested it every now and then, going a few times a year, not for very long. And then I started really climbing when I was about 16. I joined the Rhodes University Climbing Club, and that's when I started training about 2 to 3 times a week, I think, but still just for fun and outside every now and then. And then I started competing in about, the first competition I did was 2019. And then I was completely hooked in competition climbing from then on.
A very competitive person.
I am quite competitive, yes. Yeah, I got a lot of siblings as well, so it probably helps. Yeah.
And then, yes, please carry on.
Yeah, that's the next question.
So, what is speed climbing? What does that entail?
So speed climbing is, as it says, it's climbing really fast. It's a race. You are racing usually just one person. So it's a specific route all the way up 15 meters high. It's the same everywhere in the world. So it's the same route, 15 meters everywhere is the same. And then you just race, 2 people go next to each other, and whoever gets to the top the fastest first wins. Bouldering and lead climbing is there's no race. So there's no time limit usually. And then you just have to solve the problem on the wall. One higher, the other like short, 3 meters.
And in lead and bouldering, you can have more than one person, maybe more than 2 people climbing, or is it restricted to how's that work?
So in bouldering, you can only have one person climb the route at a time, but they will all climb it individually. So each person will have each go at a different time. You'll never get to see each other watch each other climbing it, because you have to solve it by yourself. Otherwise, it's called cheating. So whereas our route, we all know the route off by heart. Otherwise, we can't go fast. So we can watch each other as much as we want. You know, it won't make a difference to us. Whereas them, they're not even allowed to look at the route before. They're not allowed to climb it before they compete. They have to solve it in the moment. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's a puzzle that needs to be solved
Yes.
as
Yeah.
you go.
We call them boulder problems. Yeah. That's a problem that needs to be solved.
That's very interesting. And then what do you love about speed climbing? What is it that gets you going, that you go like, wow, now I want to do this, do that, beat the score? What is it that pushes you in that sport?
Yeah, it's such a hard question. I feel like other people answer this so easily. I suppose getting the time down is always very satisfying. Like going faster and faster, it's like, ooh, I want to see if I can beat that. Ooh, can I get it one little bit more, you know? I guess that's always, it's pushing as fast as you can go, faster and faster and faster.
Okay.
That's exciting as it is as by itself, but also just the miniature things in the whole big picture. So each move, oh, I did that move so nicely. Let's see if I can do it even better. And that will then take my time down. If I can just do this move, that much difference, then my time will go down by this many milliseconds, I suppose. Yeah, each move as itself is very satisfying to get better and better and better. And then as a whole, you watch the big picture come together and your time go down. So if it's very satisfying, it's very addictive. Yeah, I enjoy it.
And well, that's it. Satisfying, addictive, and you are a very competitive person, and those are the primary key points. That's
Yeah.
very much what gets you going and what gets you winning.
Yeah.
With qualifying for your Olympics, you mentioned in an interview that this doesn't feel like sort of thing that happened to me. I'm paraphrasing it.
Yeah.
It's an imposter syndrome. How do you manage that kind of a negative feeling?
It's not an easy feeling to manage. At some point, I suppose you've got to accept that it was you and it did happen to you. It's not a horrible thing to have to deal with. I mean, it's amazing. I don't think it's a bad thing, but it is not easy. It doesn't feel like it should be me. It is not an easy question to answer. I feel like I'm still struggling with that feeling. There are so many athletes around the world that are better than me, and they should have gone. Or that's the feeling I have. Why? How come I get to sort of steal their spot, even though I'm nowhere close to their level? But somebody from South Africa has to go, and I would like that person to meet me as many times as I can. And everybody else in the world has a lot more facilities and coaches and knowledge, and they've been doing speed timing as a country for a lot longer than we have. So I hope that if I was in their situation, then I might be one of them selected and one of the top athletes in the time. I'm not now, but that's just maybe, hopefully, the situation that I'm in. So maybe in 10 years, we will be in that situation. And to think of it like that, maybe it does make it a little bit easier, I think.
It sounds like a self-imposed limit due to the circumstances that South Africans don't have the right facilities and they're not par with the rest of the world, which doesn't really make you any less of a athlete or any less deserving to be there.
Yes.
You put the hours, you put the work, you've done the best and better than everyone else here. Therefore, you really are an Olympian. You are the athlete who's very much deserving to be there. And just having that mindset shift to accepting that and saying, this is what it is. And I am one of them, basically.
Yeah. So regardless of whether it's true or not, to try and get out of that negative mindset, to think about myself like, okay, I'm doing the best with what I have. Had I been brought up somewhere else, I might just be the best in the world.
Yeah.
There's the dream and the hope. Yeah. Try and think positively.
Trying to think positively, yes, and we do this. When you first heard about you qualifying, when the result came in and you heard that you became aware of it, what was the feel that you had about, oh, I'm going to the Olympics? What was the feeling?
The first feeling was relief. We know exactly the moment you hit the pad and your light is green, in the last race, because you knew I was going up against, it was the last race. So that was me or her, and it was either going to be me or her going. So as soon as you've hit the pad, as soon as you've done your run, you know that you've won. So it's very like, you know right away. It's not like I have to wait and find out the results or anything. Even in the picture that they took right after the qualifiers, you can see I'm coming down on the wall and I'm just like relieved. Yeah, instant relief. I think still a bit of shock that it's actually happening. I don't think I quite believed, didn't quite feel like a real thing. But I had trained really, really, really hard up until that point, and I wasn't sure if I would be able to do that again, with the conditions that I had. So, yeah, had I come second, of course I would have been happy to come second, but yeah, a lot of relief that I had managed it. Yeah, and unbelievable joy, of course.
And when you arrived to Paris, and I just want to bring you back to that moment before the competition, what was the feeling arriving there? Was it surreal? Was it something that's finally happening and you've worked towards that?
Yeah.
How did you feel
Um,
about that?
we went to France about 3 weeks before the competition. Well, 3 weeks before entering the Olympic Village. It was my first ever trip overseas. So initially, like, entering France as a whole felt quite unreal. Like, wow, I'm actually leaving the country. This is crazy. I think that initial step of arriving in a different country where they speak a different language, that's the first time doing that. That was pretty crazy. But it was so far away from the actual Olympic Games that it didn't feel quite. I don't think I can tie the two together. Yeah, but yeah, we went climbing. We had 2 climbing World Cups beforehand, so we arrived in Switzerland actually, where we stayed for 2 or 3 days just to train on the full wall because we don't have one. So 2 days before we were climbing on the actual wall, and then we had a competition 3 days later in Chamonix. So that was France. I think once the first competition happened, then it was like, okay, this is my first, world stage competition. Yeah, I think that was like the breakthrough, not the Olympics itself.
So
If that makes sense.
that does make sense. That's what I was getting out of.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned you had that moment. Okay, I've broken the ice because I've traveled to compete for the first time ever, and
Yeah.
you're doing Switzerland and Chamonix in France. So you've broken the ice, but at the same time, you mentioned that it almost felt rolled apart because it's not the Olympics, and and what is that mindset shift as you arrive uh, from Switzerland and from the climbing in France to Paris, and then you realize, okay, this is now Olympics. Now I have arrived here and I'm about to start competing. What is that process that happens in your head?
I think I think the opposite happened to me than what happened to a lot of people. Whereas they would be super nervous for the Olympics because this is the real one, this is it. I was more nervous for Chamonix and Briançon, the 2 competitions before, having been my first World Cups ever. And then because we arrived 3 weeks before, I had that 3 weeks to train on a real wall, whereas before I'd never had that opportunity. So I went into the Olympics almost more prepared and more at ease than I had done for the other 2, having been able to train after those 2 comps for a few weeks before the Olympics. So I was almost less nervous for the Olympics than for the other 2 comps.
So for our overseas viewers who just heard you speak and they thought, what do you mean competing on a speed wall for the first time? Would you explain to the overseas viewers what do you mean by that? We don't have a speed wall, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the speed wall, as I've said before, is 15 meters high and one particular route. We don't have 15 meters of speed wall. We have 6. So we put the first 6 or 7 grips up and we train on that specific part. So the first 6 meters, the first bit of the route. And then every 2 weeks to a month, we change it. Okay, now we're gonna practice the middle section, and then we change that to the last section. So we practice 2 weeks the first section, 2 weeks the middle section, 2 weeks the top. But then we never get to feel what it feels like to climb the whole thing as one piece. Yeah, which is a little bit tricky and a little bit inconvenient.
So for world competition that you had at the Chamonix, and please remind me in Switzerland, what is the other place in Switzerland?
We were just training in Switzerland, but it was Chamonix and Briançon.
Briançon. Thank
Both
you.
in
So what was that feeling standing in front of the speed wall for the first time? Never mind that this is the big deal. You competing overseas for the first time, but standing in front of the speed wall and just having that scope in front of you and going, oh, wow, this is what it is about. And this is what I've been training for, without the opportunity of speed wall, the real speed wall.
Yeah. I can't say that that was my first time climbing a speed wall, because obviously the African qualifier had to be a certified wall. So that was full length. So when we qualified for the Olympics, that was full. And then in the nationals before in September 2023, sorry, there was the nationals to qualify for the Africa Cup, which would then qualify you for the Olympics. Every competition has to have a full wall. So they made one for the September nationals, and then they made another one for the Africa qualifier. We just don't have one here in PE.
Okay, so you just don't have it as a practice, but you've been in front of this.
I've been on one here before, twice. Or there's one in Joburg as well, which I have trained on a few times.
Okay, well, that puts less pressure on you being at...
Yeah, it's not like the first time I'm ever seeing it, but yeah, I could count the number of times I've been on a full wall before I got to the Olympics.
It still feels very impressive to me that you don't have the facilities, but you train for it and you're competing at a high level. And
yeah,
I think that's where I keep revolving my thoughts around.
Yeah.
You have these obstacles, yet you're at the world level, you're a super athlete. And I find that fascinating that there's no stopping you. You just, okay, I have my reservations about should I be there with the top athletes, but you are there and there's no question.
Yeah.
What was the feeling when you first, just that psychological feeling before you stepped in front of the wall at the Olympics and started the butterflies, what was that like?
That was terrifying. You have trained a lot to get there, and speed climbing is not very forgiving. So you mess up once, you're out. There was a lot of nerves to get that first run done. To try and not think like, this is it, this is the moment, this is my one shot. Instead, just think, this is the same as I've done all these weeks now leading up to this event. I'm just doing one more run. I think that's better than thinking, this is my only chance. Yeah, it was really nerve-wracking. But once that first one was out the way, I could breathe a little bit and be like, okay, now I've got 2 more chances, because you get 3 runs each at the Olympics. Unless you false start or fall, like if you mess it up, you are out. So getting to the top of the wall and breaking the record, which was the goal, and breaking my personal best, which was the other goal, in the first run, then that was a lot of relief. Had I not done that, I think I would have felt even more pressure to do it the next time. And because you only got 3 shots, That's it. So I was very lucky that I managed to do it on the first one, and then I could sort of breathe, relax a little bit, and then I even bettered it in the second one, which was nice. Yeah, but it was very nerve-wracking for sure.
And then just to take you from the Olympic environment and atmosphere, you had a few other obstacles with the injuries. Will you tell us about that?
Before the Olympics, like from the bouldering, or
Yes, before the Olympics and then subsequent to Olympics, we can cover that. The mindset that you have in recovery.
yeah, injuries are not the easiest thing, and I think every time you get injured, it feels like you're starting again. Like I can't use the getting over the last injury as sort of knowledge of how to get over this one, because it's always different, and it feels like you've never done it before. Even though I've been injured a few times, it feels like it's, everything's just new. It is hard to talk about, especially because everyone is different. But yeah, the injury that got me into speed climbing took me out of climbing for good. And they said I'd probably never climb at the level that I was climbing ever again. So yeah, when I started speed climbing, it was more for fun, just to let's see how things go, because I'd been injured. So yeah, I had no pressure to do well. Whereas when I was injured just before the Olympics, then you've got to sort of push through the injury, and you can't think it doesn't really matter if I don't do well, because you've got this big competition that you're now qualified for, and you have to do it. Luckily my injury wasn't like I couldn't climb anymore. I just had like a couple of sore fingers. I don't even know what they were. I think they were little tears, but I could tape them, and then everything worked out fine if I just managed to tape them. Yeah. But the elbow injury, before I even started speed climbing, that was the biggest injury I've had.
The elbow injuries. And what happened with the elbow injury? How did that happen?
So I fell from a boulder. So when I got injured this was in 2022 in February. I fell from the top of a boulder at the very last move, and I sort of barely flopped onto the mat, and I put my arm out to stop hitting my head, and it went in that way. So it sort of bent the wrong way. The wrong way an elbow is supposed to bend. So I dislocated that and like tore all the things around it and shaved some bone off. Yeah, so that took me out for 5 months. And then getting back to bouldering or any sort of climbing was not easy. The arm was sore. I couldn't hold anything tiny. The tendons wouldn't feel good. And I wasn't good anymore. It was hard to not be at the level that I was when I left off, even though I prepared myself mentally that I knew I wouldn't be good anymore, or at least I wasn't going to be at the same level. It does still hit you differently when it's reality. So I sort of lost my love for it, and just was like, well, I'm never going to be. I did try for a while, but I just thought, this is lame. I don't think I can ever compete in this again. And I sort of stopped training and left the sport. Just let it be. I was still training, like gym training, but there was no like goal for me. I was just plodding along. And then my coach just suggested that I try speed. And that's how I got into speed, I guess, because he said, well, the moves are big. There's no small holds. You don't have to hold on to them long because you're supposed to be racing. There's no tiny weird moves that you have to do that your body's going to be in an awkward position. It's just, big strides up the wall. And then you can still stay in climb. Just, give it a shot. Maybe it'll help the elbow get better, and then you can go back to bouldering once it's healed itself properly. And I was quite resistant because I was like, this is not real climbing. Speed climbing is not real climbing. This is the joke, man. But I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose. Let me just give it a shot. And then I quickly enjoyed it even more than the bouldering. I didn't want to admit it even at first because I was embarrassed, but I think I smacked it so hard, and now I'm one of them. Um, but yeah, all thanks to him, I guess, that now I'm into speed.
So that was that
Yeah,
transition from
that was the transition. Yeah,
original question.
yeah,
How did you
yeah,
transition from lead in the
from
area
Boulder. Yeah,
to speed climbing?
yeah.
And what do you do to keep yourself physically fit? Do you, like, when you're injured, okay, elbow is injured or fingers are injured, do you go stationary bike? What do you do to keep some
Um,
conditioning and strength while you're injured?
yeah. I suppose you just try and do everything around the injury. So if my elbow's injured, I can do lots of leg work, right? I can do one arm things. I can do quite a bit of core. You just try and find out what you can and can't do. I've been injured a little bit quite recently. Since August, I've had like a finger injury, which has been super frustrating. The most annoying thing about like a finger or an arm is that you can't really do any like pull-ups or any sort of pull movement with both arms, which is kind of the majority of what we want to be doing to train for speed, because it's a lot of just like pulling yourself up. So you got to think, okay, is it worth climbing? Is it worth like hanging with one arm or doing like one arm pulls? Because you'd rather have one strong arm than two weak ones. But you kind of don't want to be lopsided. Yeah, so you got to sort of work around it. Yeah, see what you can and can't do, I guess.
And then
Yeah,
what
don't
is
do nothing.
don't do nothing.
Yeah,
Indeed, well, the athlete has to do quite a few
yeah,
to work
something.
around something. And
Yeah.
what's the injury you have now? I think your fingers or knuckles that you've
Yeah,
injured.
so um in China in August, I think the 18th or a few days before, we went to the World Games, and we had 1 week in Indonesia to train on the full wall, of course, because we don't have one. So we went 1 week in advance and we trained on the full length wall in Indonesia and then flew to China. And 3 days before the China World Games, I injured my pulleys in my left middle finger. So these two, I think. Yeah. So those kind of tore. Um, yeah, so that wasn't great. And I think a big lesson there was that you can't train the hardest you've trained the week before the comp. But at the same time, because we don't have the wall, it's like our only option to train is a week before the comp, because we can't exactly just go to Indonesia whenever we want. So it was a little bit annoying. And the competition was the worst competition I've ever had in my life. And I probably shouldn't have competed, but I've gone all the way to China now. And we also had a relay, which was the first relay introduced to competition in speed timing. So then if I can't climb, then my partner also doesn't get to climb. And then, you kind of let them down. So I climbed and I regret it. I really should have just not. And now I'm paying the price.
So
Yeah.
like pushing yourself. What would you say
Naturally.
to the what would you say to the youngsters who get injured and that's the first experience of injury? And what would your advice be in a retrospect? You've been injured a number of times and
Yeah.
done high level competitions. What would you say to them? The biggest
Try and avoid it at all costs. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
that is there.
Yeah, once it's done, right? There are many ways to avoid it, I suppose, but you often only see them after you've been injured. So when you're there, I think you've got to stay positive. You've got to surround yourself with positive people who are encouraging. And if you keep training, even if you can't do what you wanted to be doing, then you can see progress in the small things that you're doing. And that will keep you going as an athlete. So, okay, I can't use my upper body. I'm going to get, a heavy squat, a new PR on my squat, or I can't hang or whatever, but I'm now sprinting faster than I've ever done before. So if you can sort of shift your focus away from the injury and focus on something else that you can do, that will still help in whatever sport you're doing. I think that just mentally that will push you through. And then of course you're training, so your body is staying up to date, even if it's not quite everywhere, but something will be benefiting.
Oh, that's a wonderful advice.
Yeah.
What would you say to the youngsters who are looking to follow in your footsteps?
Let's go. Do it. If you think you can, you're probably right. Why not? Yeah, why not you? If not me, you can do it too if you want.
So just do it. Go out there and be busy with your sport. Be busy with
Good.
your performance and get lost in it, basically.
Yeah. You can always change your mind. You can always back away. Shift your focus. Do you want it now? There's no stopping you. No regrets, right?
And I'm gonna go from the inspirational advice to one topic that's very dreaded with Olympians, and that's sponsorship. I just want to shift our energy towards it towards the end of our chat. How difficult was it for you to get the sponsorship? What is the experience learned, and do you have current sponsors?
It's very hard to get sponsorship. I don't want to say impossible, but it does seem that way so far. I was lucky enough to get a sponsor for the Olympics, but just for the Olympics. And that was that. I think I just got lucky as well. I just found the right connection with the right person. But we've been looking for sponsorship since then, and nobody wants to sponsor you. I think South Africans struggle with it a lot, but not just South Africans. I'm sure everywhere around the world there's probably lots of struggles, but I don't know. I understand that people want to sponsor the winning athlete, and I am at the bottom. So why would you sponsor somebody who is not doing that well? But how can we be expected to do well unless we have training facilities or proper knowledge, which we can get someone from overseas to come and share some knowledge with us, or send me overseas to train in the facilities and with the knowledge? How can you expect us to do anything without giving us anything to get there? But not just sponsoring me. I think by sponsoring me or helping, you're just putting me as the label, but you are now helping South Africa as a whole. If you get a speed wall here in PE, South Africa has a speed wall, not just me. It's not going to be my speed wall. I might just be the reason it's there. And then now we can actually get athletes from younger ages climbing much earlier on. So why are all the athletes climbing now my age? They should be starting way younger, but we don't have a wall. So why would anyone put their kid in a sport that has no future? So I think by sponsoring me or by sponsoring my town with the facilities or with knowledge, you're not just futuring my future. You're not just sponsoring my future, but South Africa's future. And I think that's important because everywhere else that's doing really well has had athletes training from very young or for many years with some of the best coaches in the world, with some of the best facilities. And then you expect or you want us to be winning before you sponsor us, and yet we have nothing. So I think if you can help us now, maybe we will be that winner in the next 20 years or so. Yeah, that's my theory.
So basically, just to break it down, from what I'm understanding, the emphasis is in development and future.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
also to kind of zoom in on what you mentioned, you being in the bottom, and I immediately thought, okay, if you're comparing yourself in terms of medaling up or not medaling up, but being an Olympian is already considered as a benchmark.
Yeah.
And then you can just go further and further from there. So they're not sponsoring someone that's already at the bottom. It's someone who's an Olympian. And I think an Olympian in this country should have an opportunity to have a sponsor. And then also for sponsors and for the government to understand that they need to invest in our sport and development and future for our athletes. If you give us a little bit, we'll produce a lot out that little bit, but just give a little bit for us.
Just help us a little bit. Yeah, I'm not at the bottom like I'm not just a beginner speed timer, sort of, you know. I'm like 2 seconds away from the fastest person. I'm just at the bottom in the World Cups, you know. If we go to a World Cup competition, that's when I'm at the bottom. But I'm not actually, you know, at the bottom, you know.
So that's where I was kind of zoomed in on.
Yeah, I can get what you mean. Yeah,
because the athlete will have one mindset, and it's a very competitive mindset. And I'm thinking, how would a CEO of company watching this interview interpret that? And maybe I'm just mollycoddling it and being too explanatory about it, but I should maybe just address it.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping I'm a lot better than, you know, there might be lots of people in America and the UK that I'm better than, but they only send their top athletes to the World Cups. So yeah, I'm at the bottom of the top, you know.
So you're comparing yourself to that.
Yeah.
Aniya, what is next for you?
I'm hoping to compete in the nationals in March. That'll be in Cape Town. I'm not sure I will be on competition level yet because of my injury, so I might not be competing there. But I am hoping to compete in Poland and Chamonix next year. Yeah, I think that's July. That's my goal if I can raise enough money. Yeah.
Well, let's keep fingers crossed and praying. We would like to see South Africans get a little bit busy and proactive in supporting the Olympians, and not just saying, okay, this Olympian medaled up, so now this is on the surface on screen, and let's show our company as attached to that athlete. Well, let's bring other athletes forward. Let's help them achieve those medals. And I do believe that with a little bit of interest and support from our companies in SA and government, we could do that. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Thank you. You're welcome. Aniya, in conclusion, is there anything else you would like to cover that we didn't cover so far?
I can't think of anything. I'm not very good at remembering the questions and stuff. But if you have any more questions, then fire away.
I think this is perfect what we've covered so far. I think I wanted to have the main thing as an inspiration for the youngsters. And then obviously for the companies who would like to support our athletes and give them an opportunity to medal up or beat their previous records and do better than they've done before. Those are very important, because essentially you're competing to do better than you done yesterday. And obviously as a competitor, you want to do better than others. But both of those are fulfilling. Yes, those are both fulfilling for people who are highly competitive. And a highly competitive person, if hasn't muddled up, they gain the experience and they got an opportunity to beat their previous best. That's how you get things rolling. And that's how also we get the companies and government involved to help us and understand that we
Yeah.
can do this. So for
Yeah.
me, the important points were covered, and I think that you've done exceptionally well. I think you're an unbelievable
Thank you.
athlete. You're welcome. I truly find it amazing. Yes, you're comparing yourself to the best of the best, but considering the circumstances and lack of facilities,
Might just be a bit delusional. Delusionally optimistic.
but you know what? That's what athletes, how they win, because
I think so, yeah. You need that, otherwise you wouldn't go for it.
exactly, if you think in a terms of, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm hoping people don't get offended by it. People who are normal, who are like this, like a average, they don't achieve great things because they always think they're average.
Yes.
People who go for Olympics, who roll World Cups, people who became professional athletes, national champions, they don't think that they're average. They
Yes.
believe in themselves, and even if some
Yeah.
creepy, negative thoughts creep in,
Yes.
they're able to push past that.
Yeah.
That-
It's almost like there's a secret belief, even if you don't wear it fully. There is the secret, or not secret, but there must be some belief that you can do it. Otherwise, why are you here? Why are you still fighting for it? Yeah. Otherwise, it's too hard if you think negatively. Yeah. If you look at all the negative things, nothing makes sense. Why are you bothering with it? But somewhere you believe that it can be you, so you do it.
And
I
that's
think
what
that's
trainers
they're
fight
like,
for.
if you think you can, you probably can, and if you think you can't, you probably can't.
And that is the beautiful ending to our chat, because if you thought you couldn't, you wouldn't know. Yes,
wouldn't.
ultimately you've said, I don't think that's doesn't apply to me being an Olympian, but you wouldn't have been there if it did this. So there was something that was driving you.
Yeah.
Lack of
Something you
facility.
believe somewhere. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
100%.
If you're not gonna, if you don't believe enough, why would you even start in the first place? Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Aniya, this is a perfect ending to our chat. I really loved this
Thank you. Me too.
conversation, and I'm pushing and, well, not pushing, but I'm wishing you good luck for next year. I'm
Thank you.
hoping for the people, for big companies to watch this interview, to support you, and I'm supporting you in my prayers, in my crossing my fingers and saying, go Aniya, and wishing you all the best. And let's work towards medaling up. It can happen.
Yeah.
First things first, we need a speed wall, we need consistent training,
Baby
and we
steps.
need more competition overseas.
Yeah.
So yeah, step by step.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aniya. Keep well, and all the best for the future. Let's do that one more time. All the best for the future.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And for our audiences, please subscribe, like, and comment. Drop us lots of comments. We want to build a community with our athletes, and we want to engage with you and grow that community. Thank you for your support, and we will catch you at the next episode.